Hello and welcome into the Locked On Wolves podcast. We are live following the Timberwolves loss to the Portland Trailblazers on Saturday night. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North joins the show to break down the game. The Locked On Wolves postcast starts right now.
You are Locked On Wolves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North is with us to talk through the Wolves' loss to the Blazers. And Marney, we've had a run of some fun competitive games lately. This one, I think, fits that bill. It was a fun game. It was close. The Wolves haven't had that many close games. Unfortunately, the Wolves just ended up on the wrong side of this one.
Yeah, that was kind of rare territory to be in the final seconds of a close game. But I thought the Wolves showed up, and I'm not into moral victories. I get that, but second night of a back-to-back, emotional night in Utah, all those things, Anthony Edwards learning how to play in back-to-backs. I feel like this was a sign of growth and maturity from the team to be there at the end. Didn't get the win, so we're not going to pat ourselves in the back for that. But if we want this team to end up where we hope they're going, then these are the kinds of things they need to do, not just cash it in and be like, well, we won in Salt Lake City, so we took care of this back to back. Everyone knows we're going to just take one of two, so we'll just cash it in and lose by 25 to Portland, get blown out. No, they were there to win it. They were there at the end.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to say, like, we're not okay with moral victories. That's not what we're trying to do here. But at the same time, you can still show growth in a loss. I think both can be true.
Yes.
So, we don't have to pretend like this was a great performance, but it was a competitive performance. And comparing it to what we've seen previously this season, I mean, that's a real thing. I mean, what the scenario you mentioned, we've seen that happen this season. So to see progress, the team move in the right direction, I think that's still something we can point out and still say it was disappointing to lose the game. We could very clearly point to some issues here. I think this one kind of, in my mind, the fourth quarter is where it was lost. It was a one possession game going to the fourth quarter, but I think it was late in the third quarter when the Wolves, they actually had a 9-point lead with under 4 minutes to play in the third. And Portland normally doesn't play that fast, but they were able to kind of push some pace, get some momentum on their home floor. Again, Wolves on the second night of a back-to-back. Portland, getting some of that momentum. And then the Wolves actually had a rebound. Jalen Noel looked like what was a rebound in the final 20 seconds or so of the third quarter. The Wolves were going to go down and get the final shot, but he had the ball stolen away. And Portland got a big dunk. They got up by 2. They got even more momentum, essentially right before the end of the quarter. And then as the fourth started, Portland kind of held the Wolves at arm's length that entire final frame.
Yeah. And that's what Chris Finch pointed out in his post-game press conference about being the turning point of the game, that the Wolves had finally gotten a little breathing room, and then they just started turning it over, and Portland started hitting big shots, and the Wolves' shot selection got a little shaky there. So Chris Finch would agree with you, Ben, that was a huge swing and a huge difference in the game. The other thing was the second chance points in the first half. It was 17-2 at halftime. Portland had 17 second chance points to Minnesota's 2. And the Blazers only had 5 in the second half, but it was that and putting Portland on the free throw line in the first half. Not nearly the same issues in the second half, but that was such a steep hill to have to climb after giving Portland that much momentum in those two categories. Those were kind of the big things that Chris Finch pointed out as difference makers, because they don't have to be a whole lot when you're talking about a 6-point game. It doesn't take much to be a difference maker in a game like this.
Yeah, the Wolves only had 4 offensive rebounds in the entire game, and like you mentioned, Portland had a field day in the first half in terms of second chance points. They had 5 in the second half, 5 second chance points in the second half. The Wolves had 4 offensive rebounds the entire game. Portland was a plus 17 on the glass, and that's an area that the Wolves, it's well documented. The Wolves struggle rebounding the ball. They've been better lately playing teams that aren't as good on the glass. Portland's pretty middle of the road on both ends of the floor. But I mean, Nurkic kind of controlled. He had 15 rebounds himself. The Wolves had 28 as a team, total rebounds for the game. And there were some pretty good offensive performances for the Wolves. Like, this was a good Rudy Gobert game. The Wolves did a good job finding him on lobs in the half court. Probably the best kind of the best overall I thought so, at least that I can remember, Rudy being involved in the offense and getting shots within the flow of the offense. He shot 9 of 11. He only had 1 offensive rebound. We've seen him do a lot cleaning up misses this year to get some baskets, but he had some good ones on lobs today. I thought both Ant and D'Lo, yes, there were some sloppy moments turnover-wise, but for the most part, they did a good job finding Rudy in the half court and were at least able to have an edge on points in the paint in this game.
Yeah, and I thought Rudy made some nice catches, too. The Wolves were looking for him much more often. That was clear. There were a couple of lobs that missed him, but he had a one-handed catch that he came down and put in. He had one where D'Lo, or was it Kyle Anderson, kind of bounced it almost up his legs, but he really caught it cleanly. Jim Peterson called it the best catch of the season for Rudy, and Kevin Lynch and I were watching that game. We were both like, I don't know if it's best of the season, but it stood out as a catch that he wasn't making earlier in the season. So I think it goes credit to both sides of that coin. The Wolves passing to Rudy better and just looking for him in general, and his receiving of the passes and handling the ball. Like I'm hoping this is a real sign that is getting ironed out and that part of the game is getting figured out.
Yeah, the Timberwolves they lost the rebounding battle. They also lost the 3-point battle and the free throw battle. It's hard to win a game when you get beat in all those categories. Portland is obviously a good 3-point shooting team, but they made 13 threes in this game. The Wolves only attempted 23 3-pointers, excuse me. That's, I think, a bigger conversation, but we've seen the number of attempts from outside the arc go down drastically. I think that's lined up pretty closely with no Karl-Anthony Towns. And you could say the same thing about free throws, too. The Wolves were out free throwed in this game. Portland made 7 more free throws. And that's another category that no Karl-Anthony Towns really hurts, both 3-point attempts and free throw attempts. He's obviously one of the team leaders in both those categories. And for Portland to win 3-pointers, free throws, and rebounding, that's a lot for the Wolves to overcome.
Yeah, and Damian Lillard had almost as many free throw makes as the entire Wolves team. So, yeah, is it refereeing? Is it the Wolves not being aggressive? Is it Wolves being tired on the second night of a back-to-back? Not sure, but you're right. You can't get into those categories and lose all of them and expect to win a game.
Let's talk about our presenting sponsors for tonight's postcast. That's our friends over at Rocket Money. Are you wasting money on subscriptions? 80% of people have subscriptions they forget about. Maybe for you, it's an unused Amazon Prime account or a Hulu account that never gets streamed. There's a great app that I use that helps me track all my expenses, and because of it, I no longer waste money on subscriptions I don't even use. You may have heard of it. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. The app shows all your subscriptions in one place and cancels what you don't want for you. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't know you were paying for. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription, all you have to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Cancel unnecessary subscriptions with Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Seriously, it could save you hundreds per year. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Marty, you mentioned Damian Lillard. He had 36 in this game on 22 shots. He was a perfect 15 of 15 at the free throw line. You mentioned that. He had 8 assists. Anfernee Simons, we talked about this actually last night on Friday night's postcast about a pair of really strong backcourt players the Wolves were about to get ready to play in Portland. And sure enough, Simons and Lillard combined for 67 of Portland's 124 points. So more than half of their scoring output was Lillard and Simons. And I mean, obviously several Wolves players guarded them. The Wolves tried some different concepts. I thought they ended up switching a little bit more than I think I would expect that, and Finch would have wanted to. There were some moments late in the game when Portland got the matchup they wanted. They got Gobert in a switch and beat him off the dribble, and there just wasn't enough help defense in the paint for the Wolves. Anything notable from that you saw, Marnie, defensively for the Wolves? It didn't really, like, obviously Portland scored 124 on 52% shooting, so the Wolves weren't good enough defensively, but it wasn't like one glaring, I don't think it was like one guy getting beat over and over. It just felt like Portland, their guards were on point. The Wolves were just a little bit slow in some of their switches and some of their concepts defensively, and I think they just got beat on that end of the floor overall.
And I didn't think Lillard shot the lights out. The Wolves made him work for it. They made him put up a lot of shots.
Right.
He had, what was it, his last game when he had 40 points when they lost at the buzzer to Denver, and he had shot something like 17 threes. Now, I think it was 9 of 17 from 3 in that game. Now, that's a little outrageous, and I didn't think that the Wolves let him loose by any means. I thought they were pretty conscious of making him work, showing him bodies. When a screen would come at the top of the key, and this is Lillard and Simons, that the big would come up to show and like pick up another body and try to give him some traffic if he was going to, or either one of them was going to drive to the hoop. So I didn't feel like the Wolves were just, these two guards just ran wild. They're just really good scorers. I mean, it's Damian Lillard. And Anfernee Simons has proven that he can fill it up, and they both were in the 30s. He was 36 and 31. So, yeah, 67 combined, but not a super efficient 67 combined. And then nobody else just killed the Wolves. Like Jeremy Grant had a nice game. Nurkic was okay. Nurkic didn't even close at the very end. I just felt like, yeah, those two kind of got off, but it wasn't glaring to me. It wasn't at times. There were a couple of baskets that were too easy, but it wasn't an overarching theme. So it's something they got to clean up. And that brings into question the strategy and the point counterpoint and how this goes when you're seeing the same team 2 days later. I love these little mini series, especially when the first game is good and there's a little tension, a little heat in there. You're like, okay, let's do a rematch on Monday. Let's go.
Yeah, and it's weird, but they play him again in 48 hours, and I guess a lot less than 48 hours now. And I mean, the role players for Portland did enough. They hit shots. Josh Hart was 3 of 3 from 3, and I mean, it's also important to note, like you said, it's Lillard and Simons is a really good scoring guard too. They're actually a top 10 offense, and it's defensively that Portland struggles more and came into the game with the same record as the Wolves. So there's no shame in giving up, a lot of points that are, on just a decent shooting percentage to those guys. It's limiting the role players. It's making somebody else beat you at times in those big moments. And, coming up with those clutch defensive stops. We didn't quite see enough of that in this game. Hopefully that changes Monday. Be interesting to see what kind of adjustments the Wolves do make. So we'll, of course, go live on Monday. We do after every Wolves game. So live postcast about 45 minutes or so after Monday night's game in Portland as well. And this live show is always on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube page. You can also listen to it after the fact on all Locked On Wolves channels. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Wolves wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.